Alan Kirby, very welcome to the podcast, Talking Sport with Stan. It's great to have you on, Alan. Really appreciate you taking the time now to come on for the chat.
No problem at all, Sean. It's great to be on. Looking forward to it.
All good with you. I'm looking through your array of clubs now, and I said there's lots of little questions I have with the different experiences, and you're a Liverpool man as well, I believe.
Well, do you know what? I'm actually not. I was a Liverpool supporter growing up, but since I went over, I just came back from not supporting anybody, to be honest.
Really?
I did, yeah. And I suppose people find it strange enough that I don't support anybody. I don't know what changed. I've often been asked this, and I enjoy playing soccer, I suppose, more than I did ever watch it for a start. But I was like any child. I mean, I was a Liverpool, and I had the poster on the wall. I had the Liverpool quilt.
I read that. All right, yeah.
Yeah, and I was big into them, but something just changed in me when I went over. I just kind of, maybe it was the whole commercialization of it, and I think I was kind of over there at the time where we started getting all, like, it was 94 to 98, and we started getting, or the Premiership started getting a lot of imports, and there was all the clubs had a high turnover of players, and I still to this day, I still prefer the old school football, to be honest with you.
I know, yeah. It changed the landscape of it, didn't it?
It has completely. The influx of money's made it exciting and the whole lot, and the marketing, sure, everyone knows that you see the ads. But I just there was more of an authentic feel about the old school players. They just gave everything. And sure, they were going out drinking and they were having a life away from football. It was less professional, I assume, for a lot of them. But it was just, the tackling was real, and the fouls were real. The referee gave very little, and there was no acting and dive. And I think just the whole way the game changed, it just maybe just put me off, And I think being over there seeing the whole commercial side of it and how it was dealt, I just kind of came home and really just didn't support anybody.
Yeah, no, I get that, and it's funny actually on social media now. You see a lot of old clips coming up, and they're very hard to beat. Like when you see some of the old days and the old clips, like it was just great stuff.
Yeah, and they're a lot slower, and but they were fantastic players, and all just giving their all every week.
Yeah, I think that's it. The whole hardness of it, like the commitment of it. It just felt more real and genuine. Whereas you can look at a lot of the games now, and you would question looking at certain players, like where they're
exactly. I just looking at them now, you get the sense that they're just in it for the money, to be honest.
Yeah, and then look at the other impact of it too, and I suppose you would have seen it as well, because you could have possibly been victim to it when you've seen these players starting to come in, and opportunities were difficult enough to go overseas and try and make it without, as you said, players being imported. Those opportunities were drying up, I'm sure.
Absolutely. The year I got released, we'll say, from Aston Villa in '98, what happens is when you're released, your name gets put on a list. I think there was 92 odd clubs or whatever it was in the 4 divisions. And your name, everyone that's available goes on this list, and it's circulated all the clubs. So, I mean, you'd have a hard enough time getting into another club and getting pulled from this big, massive list of names. But the year it ended, I believe, anyway, my memory is, the year I got released, when I went on this list, it was the first year of the Bosman ruling coming in. So not only had you the list of lads that got released from all the different clubs, you had the big list of lads that were free agents, and a lot of them were free agents because their agents were telling them to let their deals run out so that they could get a move and get a big money move, because the clubs they were moving to wouldn't have to buy them, and they were getting increased wages as a result. These players were being phoned up.
Yeah.
If you're out of contract, we won't have to buy you, so we'll give you wages instead. So I had a very hard time getting plucked out of that list, so that really went against me the year I got released.
Very difficult, yeah. Very difficult. And all those things out of your control as well. You're trying to clock in performances and trying to impress, and then
that's it, and I was 6 months over there after I finished up, and went from one club to another, and I don't know. Look, you probably want to go into that later in the conversation.
Yeah, you were drawn back to Waterford then in the end, weren't you?
I was. I came back, and I like, when your head's in the stars and you want to make it in England. I loved life in England. I love, who wouldn't love getting up, playing football, and be finished at lunchtime, and and getting paid for it. And, they weren't big bucks at that stage. You really had to make it through to get anything decent. But, I had no responsibilities over there. I had nothing. I was just loving life, loving the crack with the lads and training. And, you go out for a drink at the weekend. It was just a great time. And, I was doing anything to stay over there. I had an agent.
Yeah,
Things
you
were
don't
going,
want it to end.
well, you don't want it to end. Nobody would. And things were actually going well. That was the thing. And I had an agent who approached me, and obviously, they don't approach you unless they think that they can make a few quid from you. And
of course, yeah.
I had to turn around to tell him a few months later that I was released, and I just got my Irish under 21 cap, and I played in the World Cup in Malaysia in the semi-final the previous summer, and I felt things were going well, and I was playing all the reserve games. But look, it wasn't to be, and I went, as I said, a few clubs on trial. And again, you thought things were going well, and they turn around and say, look, we have no money. And you kind of say, well, why have I been here for the last 2 or 3 weeks? And you're wasting my time. And I was living on savings. And long story short, I was 6 months or so doing that. And I came home then. Waterford were knocking on the door, and Mike Flanagan was the manager at the time. And coincidentally, actually, Mike, good fella, I liked Mike. Again, old school. He had his own very, very well known striker back in the day, big striker. But he came over when he was manager of Gillingham years previously over to Waterford United. Waterford, and he toured around Waterford looking at all the underage teams, and he plucked lads that he had seen, and from the local knowledge too. He was speaking to people. So I was one of the boys, and there was 6 of us went over to Gillingham on trial. And he'd offered me a contract, but I had said, look, I have other clubs. I had Coventry and I had Villa at the time. So I turned them down, and 3 lads signed. But didn't Gillingham come into difficulty, basically? And they actually, as soon as the lads had signed a few months later, they were all released back to Waterford United. So it was a good decision for me in that sense, not to go to them. But I hooked up with him anyway when I came back to Waterford, and I liked him, and I played under him for a season or a season and a half.
That was nice. I'm sure that took adjusting as well, because just to go back on what you were saying there, I read actually that it was a difficult end to Villa, because in fairness to you, you were offered a contract, you weren't happy with it, and I thought that when I read that, I thought it was a very brave thing of you to challenge that and believe that you deserve more. And it was great to read that you backed yourself, because another lad would say, oh yeah, grand, yeah, I'll stay on, but you weren't getting what you deserved.
I did. Well, I signed a 3-year professional contract, and the whole landscape of Villa changed completely when Ron Atkinson, who I signed under, he got the bullet. And he was as you would probably read about him, he's a very laid back kind of character, like the good life. And the whole place was just a place of enjoyment and smiles. Now it was serious work when it came down to doing it, but
he seemed to watch a lot of football. He kept an eye on you guys a lot.
Absolutely, he was always he'd be there at the training ground. We used to play our youth team matches on a Saturday morning at the training ground, and he'd be in and he'd be standing the sideline. He'd watch the whole lot, and he'd be out watching his training. You really felt like this fella, you knew all your names. You felt like he had plans for you, to be honest, and he'd bring lads over to train with the first team, and he'd bring lads on trips and things like that. And you just felt like, there was opportunity there. But he got the bullet, and so did all his backroom team. And in came Brian Little, who was doing well with Leicester City at the time, and a complete change of regime. He was a disciplinarian, and he ruled with a bit of an iron fist, and you didn't cross him quite guy, but intimidatingly quiet. And the backroom staff he brought in, likes of Tony McAndrew, Kevin MacDonald, they were it was really a crack the whip type of an environment after that. And you dare not cross these lads. And coincidentally, Kevin MacDonald was part of the great Liverpool team in the 70s, and he was one of the faces on my wall growing up. So he was a kind of a boyhood kind of idol of mine. And I got on well enough with Kevin, but he was more reserves at that time, and it was all about pass move, get the ball, pass move team. you know the way the Liverpool team
Yeah,
were,
of
were
course.
great at that, you know, and they play as a team, and rightly so. I mean, you know, you're only as good, I suppose, as your weakest link, and it was all about teamwork. So me, the kind of off the cuff player I was on the wing, where I'd like to get it and just do whatever I saw, and if something, you know, might take a fella on, or I might just pass a simple, whatever you know, it was really just taken away from me, to be honest. And it was like passing a move and passing a move, and if I did try it and didn't come off, I got a bollocking, and it was kind of coached out of you, you know.
Yeah.
And it was all
Very
about
difficult, like,
possession.
with all the progression you had made under
Yeah,
one sort of setup, and
yeah.
it's all swiped away then.
So you know, the whole thing changed. The whole thing
Mm.
changed, and I finished out the 3 years, and Brian Little offered me another year, and same money, same everything. And when you're only on a few £100, like
Yeah,
it just kind of got this boy serious, and you know, I was doing well enough to warrant some bit of an incentive, like give me
of
a
course.
couple of hundred more. You know, you wouldn't have broke the bank. And I was so annoyed. I just went in and I said, look, can I have a chat? And I went in and said, look, you know, I appreciate the 1 year you're offering me, but you know, for inflation's sake, like, I mean,
Mm.
surely there has to be something extra there. And he was just so tight. And I remember him looking at me going, well, I'll have to speak to some, you know, and like it made an absolute song and a dance about it. And it was all just an act. And I knew it
Yeah,
at the time, and he knew it, but he had to go through, be seen going, you know, to go through this rigmarole. And meantime, his first teamers were probably negotiating how many thousands a week extra.
I
So I
know.
just came out of there, and you know, it was just I suppose it was just the way it was over there, you know, and it was a bit of a bad blood, and like, you know,
Yeah,
during that
was that
year.
a turning point, do you think? Was it kind of after that recovery?
Um,
Was
I
it?
I don't think it was a turning point how I was being treated or anything like that. It
No, do
was
you think another thing that went against you, sort of say, like that
well,
shouldn't have, but did?
possibly,
Mm.
yeah. I mean, look, I did my best. My sleeves rolled up. I was on this lad, and I gave it socks every time I trained. And as I said, the way things were going, I thought it were going very well. But I suppose when I was, what happened was I was over, and I actually was getting my 21 cap, my first 21 cap. So
Mm.
you would think things were progressing. I was over in, I think, the Czech Republic, and I came on as a sub in that game, and actually had a good Mick McCarthy era. He was the first team manager at the time in his first managerial stint, and he actually watched the game because his 21s would always play the night before the first team would play, and came watch the game, and I came on at 20 minutes or whatever to go, and he said in the dressing room I had done well, and I said, oh, sure, look, that's all I can take out of the trip. So look, I came back. Actually, sorry. So while I was away, the lads were being told if they were being kept on or not. So that usually
That's right.
happens.
Yeah, yeah. You were
I'm,
touching
I'm,
in with them.
yeah, so I've touching base. That usually happens a month or so before the end of the season to allow lads a bit of time to get themselves organised with other clubs or whatever the case may be. So lads were being told, and I was kind of looking at them saying, okay, right, well, that fella is being kept on. And sure, he didn't play as much as I did, and trying to gauge it really, you know,
Mm.
as to how I would have done when I got back. So I got back, and next day I went in training, and after training, then the John Gregory was the manager now. Brian Little had gone, but John Gregory had come in as part of Brian Little's crew, so it was the same kind of regime. So under Brian Little, John Gregory left, and I think he went to Leicester as manager. No, he didn't. Wickham, maybe, possibly, but he came back then to take over as manager, I believe. Then, and he was the one that told me the kind of bad news. But he hadn't been in. He hadn't been with Villa long, so he kind of just asked the youth team manager or the reserve team manager at the time,
Mm.
look, who do you want to keep? Who do you not want to keep? So it was him that said, look, mate, you know, let's let Alan go or whatever he said to him, because there was another young lad coming through, and he was getting a sniffing around the England team, and he was only young, and they thought maybe he
Yeah,
was the next thing. So look, that's how it goes. That's how it goes.
it's
So
tough. It's tough. It's
it's
difficult,
tough, and
and
you
even
know,
the way he
there's no
delivered the
pull from
news
under
to you
your
as
feet.
well.
Yeah. So you're left, and you join the big list of lads that don't make, and you kind of come home a little bit, I suppose, with your tail between legs, and it's up to you to pick yourselves up and try and get on with it, and start, you know, finding your feet again, you know. So as you said there was a big adjustment.
Yeah, it's the ruthlessness of it, and even, I did read as well that the way John Gregory delivered the message to you, I think it was in the gym, was it, or like
Yeah,
he didn't
yeah.
bring you aside even into the office, there's no
Well,
no sincerity to it, like,
there's nothing. There's nothing there.
no,
It's a commercial operation.
yeah,
That's always they wheel these young lads. They get them in for nothing, and I think they get lads in for. I remember at the time lads were getting 40 quid a week. Like YTS is the youth training scheme at the time, and it's paid by the government. And then Villa just fund the digs, the bus pass in and out of training and things like that. So like all they need is, and actually I came through in the same era as Garrett Barry. So like all they need is one Garrett Barry every 10 or 20 years to make all their money
yeah,
back. Like
mm,
the rest of the lads there are just treated like shite, for want of a better expression. And that's the way it is. And if anyone asks me, it's not sour grapes or anything. That's just the facts.
yeah, yeah, and because it's very tough receiving that news, I'm sure, and I know you look back, you probably think now looking back, God, it was great to have to come home and have another fantastic opportunity to get straight back in playing football with Waterford, and I suppose prior to that kind of bitter ending, like you had a great period over there when you first arrived over. I suppose we can go back to that, like as a youth going over for the first time, and it was actually, I also read your father, he kind of was working away on this behind the scenes, without you realizing. Is that correct?
Well, yeah. So I would have without go back too far. So I would have been in the
Yeah,
Kennedy Cup. I got trials for Ireland under 15. I didn't make that team, and then I did make the Irish under 16 team, and we had the European Championships in Dublin. And it was after that tournament that Eddie Corcoran offered me trials over in Aston Villa, and he was Dublin scout, and I went over. And I came back and I said, Dad, they want to offer me a 2-year YTS scheme contract. And sure, of course, excuse me, I thought Dad would be delighted. He kind of looked at me as if he was expecting it. So I was kind of like, all right, okay. And it was a few months before my 17th birthday. So yeah, those days anyway, I don't know what it's like now, but you couldn't go over until you were 17. So I was probably 16 and 3/4 at this stage, and what was I doing? I was probably just playing local, I think, then at the time with maybe Johnville or whatever. It was probably the off season, I think, and then I was doing my leaving cert, I think that was it, and I knew that I was heading over there as soon as I turned 17 in September. And by the time it came around, I think for my birthday or whatever, Dad said to me, "Look, you're not going over on a shitty two-year YTS scheme. You're going over on a 3-year professional contract." And there was a bit of a small signing on fee and stuff that Dad had. Now, Dad had a neck on him. He wouldn't be afraid of asking for something. And
well, maybe you
the only
rubbed off on
downside
you,
for
and you were stood up to your fellas in that contract talk that time.
Well, maybe there's a
Yeah.
bit of it in there somewhere. But the only downside for poor Dad was he thought he was getting the sign on fee, but it was lodged into my account over in England. But yeah. But a bit of
Transfers
crack.
straight away. Ah, no, it's
Yeah,
brilliant.
exactly.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was great because when I went over to the U team, there was only Lee Hendry was in my team, and he was well looked after. And rightly so. I mean, he was a fantastic player. He was one for the future, and he was on a pro contract. Aaron Byfield was another, and then there was another 2 or 3 lads, and then there was myself. So a lot of the rest of the lads were on under €40, £40 sterling a week. So I was lucky to get it, and I valued it, to be honest. And a 3-year deal as well. A lot of lads were on 2 years as well at that stage.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Brilliant. Like, and
Yeah,
obviously you were thrown into this whole new world, and you were coming across these superstars and likes of,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I believe you were given the important role of looking after Dwight York's boots as well.
yeah. So
I couldn't believe he wore Mizuno at the time. I like Mizuno. Well, I'm a big advocate of them. I think they're a great boot. I remember only starting to wear them there a couple of years ago myself, but there's very few around here even wearing Mizuno boots. And then obviously all the Brazilians were starting to wear them then. But
yeah,
when I read that he had a couple of pairs of boots that you had to look after. It was the funny story behind it.
yeah. So yeah, I landed over, and I quickly settled. I loved it. You hear lads not settling in, but I really loved it. And as I was saying there earlier, I loved the life and the whole lot. I got on well with the boys. I was easy going.
Yeah,
Um, So so the regime would be you'd wake up in your digs, you'd have your breakfast in your digs, and you'd get the bus from wherever you're scattered throughout Birmingham, and you get the bus into Villa Park. The UT manager comes along in a minibus and ferries everybody out to the training ground. You're out there by maybe 9 o'clock in the morning, and everyone has jobs. So between cleaning the changing room floors or whatever the case may be, everyone has jobs, the showers, the toilet, whatever it may be. So whatever your job is, you also have a first team or a person who's in and around the first team. It could be a reserve team player that's in the first team squad of whatever, 25, 30 players. So everyone has a pair of boots to clean, and I got Dwight York's, just literally a rabbit out of a hat job, and I was given Dwight. So when you go into the boot room, literally small room, probably 6 foot by 6 foot, or probably 3 or 4 meters by the same small little room, and you had pegs up from the ceiling down to the floor. So each player had a line of pegs in a vertical line from the ceiling to the floor, and there was probably about 5 sets of 2 pegs. So Dwight had he had a set of Mizuno on each pair of pegs, we'll say, in this vertical line, right? Now, as far as I was concerned, all I wanted to do was just keep them all clean. I had no idea which were his training boots, which were his match boots, which were this, which were that. He just had boots coming out of his arse, like he was obviously getting these for free. And he'd come in with a new pair of boots every odd week, and that was another thing. Like they were too big, these players, to break in the boots themselves. They couldn't risk getting things on their feet from cuts and bruises from having to break in a new pair of boots. Sure, that was beyond them, like, you know. But so of course we were all keen. Oh, I'll break them in for you just to wear the Dwight's boots. Like, do you know what I mean? They wouldn't fit you or anything, but like, no problem, Dwight. I'll break them in for you, no problem. But anyway, yeah. So getting on to the kind of story, come a Friday afternoon, obviously the matches would be on a Saturday, so the kit man would come out with this big silver skip, and he would be the manager would have given him the first team squad. So he'd come along, he'd round up all the U team players and say, right, I want, and he'd start from the goalkeepers. So he'd start with the first 2 goalkeepers, and he'd say, right, Mark Bosnich's boots, please, and the U team player would have to go over and give him the 2 pairs of boots or whatever, or however many he wanted packed. It could be 3, you know, depending obviously on the type of grass, and it could be rain and whatever, studs and moldies usually. So you'd give John Paul, I think, was the kit man at the time. So you'd give him the boots, and on more than one occasion, Gareth Farley was a good mate of mine at the time, and Gareth would be travelling with the first team, and I on more than one occasion after an away game, Villa, you know, you'd be looking out for the results, and Villa might have won or lost or whatever the case may be. White might have played or scored or whatever. And on more than one occasion, Garrett rang me, you know, and he'd be on his way back from the match on the first team bus, and he'd say, Dwight's not a happy camper, you know. I'm like, what, Dwight? He had one look at his pair of boots and fecked him across the away team changing room, going, what are these? These are not my match boots. What is he doing? And you know, that's obviously less colourful language, but
I know. I can imagine.
Be careful on Monday morning. So, of course, I'm going on now. So Monday morning comes, and it's pulled with me. It's near to me. You marched me into the boot room, and these are my match boots, these are my training boots, it's raining, these are this, these are that. And sure, went in money and out the other, and I did it all over again. Poor Dwight, you know. But and come Christmas then you'd be given a bonus for cleaning the boots up. And there was a couple of times where it was just a look at the draw, and Dwight sure pull out. That was another thing about Dwight. He wouldn't carry coins in his pockets in case, just beneath him, you know.
Yeah.
And I suppose damage the lining of his pockets. Like Conor McGregor's old fella, but he had a wad of notes and a little clip to keep them intact, of course. Come Christmas, take out the wad and he'd give me 50, and sure, it was big money to me at the time, and I'd be delighted, 50 sterling. But other lads would probably lucky to get a tenner or anything at all off, because they might be doing just some fringe player who doesn't play in the first team usually, you know.
Yeah.
Just
A rare character, I'm sure, yeah. I suppose he went relatively easy on you, I suppose.
He did. No, it took a lot to rile him, you know. You look at posters of him, he's all smiling, that's the way he was.
Yeah.
Be the
But
right character.
it's mad because you hear so many like you'd hear so many stories about that being part of life when you go over there, those little responsibilities. But
Yeah.
there's such pressure in it too, because you're dealing with a lot of divas, like and they're
Yeah.
lads that are be very very finicky.
Oh, for sure,
Mm,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, they wanted everything. They,
yeah,
they were used to everything. Don't feel like they would come. So we'd be there at 9. We'd be cleaning the gym, the change rooms, whatever the case may be. We'd have the boots spotless, and the boots are put under where they sit in the first team change rooms. Their kit is all folded up on the benches as they arrive. So all they do literally is drive into the training ground, park up their big car, supercars, get out, walk with a wash bag in, and get undressed into their kit and walk straight out for training within half an hour. And they finished their literally one training session. Now it might be different now, the way the whole thing got more
yeah.
professional, but it was usually 1 in the morning, and by it started about 10, half 10, and by 12, quarter past 12, they're walking in. They take off their kit, they throw in the middle of the floor with their dirty boots, and in for shower, back into their gear, just hanging up, in for free grub in the canteen, and back into their supercars. And the rest of the day is theirs, and that's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday,
Mm,
and then match Saturday off Sunday.
some
So
like
they had everything done for them, and if you fell short with dirty boots or the wrong boots, or that was an excuse for them to come down on you.
of course, yeah, and all those little things matter to you guys too, trying to make an impression.
Well, yeah, it was that you don't want to fall out with them, like, because you're
No,
putting up with
exactly,
these
but
guys.
get the wrong fella, like and that can easily happen.
Yeah, yeah. Some
Mm,
lads were a lot more serious.
make life difficult for you, yeah.
Yeah, and you also had the staff. The staff would wheel their car, all in their sponsored cars as well. They drive their cars around to the back of the facility and get all the youth team players to start cleaning their cars. Like, now, to me, that was a take the piss scenario.
That's
Like,
so wrong, isn't it?
that's not in the contract. That's not in the small. But you couldn't.
No, you couldn't say no.
You
You
couldn't
can't.
say no, and I suppose without going into too much, there's a
Yeah,
big. If you look it up, there's a big massive deal going on about Kevin MacDonald and Tony McAndrew, the youth team and reserve team managers, that we had to put up with. Now they were there for donkey's years. They're only
yeah.
recently gone in the last handful of years, and big rigmarole about them bullying players. But
Mm.
that's another that's another
I know, but
conversation.
sure, I'm well, believe it was very, very common, I'm sure. And like, look how
Well, very,
much,
very common. Like, I mean,
look at
they're
all the
old
things
school
surfacing
players,
now.
but you can't. They didn't evolve
No,
um, their approach the way the whole game and the players evolved. Like, you can players are wrapped up in cotton wool these days. These young lads over there, they can't. You speak to a young lad now the wrong way, and not all the young lads, I'm saying, but
yeah. No, it's changed. It's
you,
changed.
you they could be suicidal. They don't
Yeah,
know. They haven't ever been spoken to like that, and coaches are some of them are not moving
no,
with the times, and there's been that's what I'm getting at with these two lads now. That's
yeah.
the way it's gone with between discipline hearings and what have you.
And would you agree in saying that, like, the clubs that are really doing well nowadays, that a lot of that would be eradicated?
Yes, yes. I would like to think
Mm,
that in the bigger clubs, like your the Chelseas and the
mm,
top clubs and Man Cities and these that like it's I mean, look at Pep Guardiola. Would you imagine him speaking to
mm.
if he was a youth team manager now, speaking to a youth team personally? Like, I mean, we were getting the Alex Ferguson hairdryer treatment and called
Everything.
effing
Mm,
see you next Tuesdays to our faces, and like, it's just it was wrong, and there was nobody. Like, you're like rabbit in the headlights when you're a young lad over there. You don't want to upset the cart. You're not going to stand up for yourself. You knew it, they knew it, and you just got on with it, and try not to take it personally.
And would you find that, like, would that have impacted you as a player? The way some lads could, in hearing that, were you able to brush that off, or did you find maybe sometimes you might have, like, kind of, even while you're playing, would you have reacted to maybe teammates or in a certain way in being influenced, in being talked to like that abroad, like, you know, and would you have took that negative aspect with you a bit, or were you able to just let it in one ear out the other and have?
Yeah, I wasn't divorced. I was somewhere in between. I would like I didn't take it personally for a lot of it, you know,
Yeah,
because they would treat someone beside me the same thing,
yeah,
the same way. Um, there was elements of it that were definitely personal,
yeah,
probably away from the pitch, but um, there was lads there that needed an arm around the shoulder. I wasn't one of them.
yeah,
I didn't let it upset me. What more impacted me over there was the ball arriving at my feet in an advanced area of the pitch, out on the wing, only the fullback to beat, and I'm being told to get rid of it, pass and move. That it's the style of play that affected me more than any kind of negativity from any
yeah.
kind of a manager as such.
Okay, yeah, I get that. Because
Mm.
obviously, like, in abundance, skill, pace, and like your work rate has been mentioned time and time again, Alan. And I suppose you strike me as a lad that maybe always felt like, you know, you want to prove a lot of people wrong because you hadn't it easy underage. You know, as you talked about before, about your height kind of going against you, and it was kind of used, especially at under was it under 15s you missed out on.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
and like your height was kind of mentioned as a reason for that, and you made reference to. I thought it was a great Roy Keane quote, and I can't remember it word for word, but basically it was like, whatever about the height, the length of my studs is the same
Oh yeah,
as yeah. I
yeah,
thought that
yeah.
was a brilliant
Definitely.
quote.
I definitely borrowed that one. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah.
right. I read that one somewhere. All right.
I thought it was
Yeah.
brilliant because it just, you know, and I suppose you had that instilled in you, like, you know, that this is, you know,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous when you think about how far the game has come on because
Yeah. Yeah.
some
Like
of the best players in the world.
well, exactly. Yeah. You know, and it's only probably in the last number of years that you know we've all seen the David Silvas and Azolas and these players that
Mm,
you know that are just changed the way teams play like single handedly almost. But yeah, but so growing up, I would have been small, very very small, and it was the first thing that people would have said about me playing underage in Waterford. She's a good player, all right, but she's so small, he's very small. And
mm,
so yeah, look, it would have gone against me to a certain extent. So I was very lucky that I got on the 16th, and I very very nearly didn't make that 16th team because I think I missed out on the original squad and I was first on standby. And I think what happened was Ian Hart got couldn't. He was either injured or he couldn't play because he was getting in the first team at least. There was something happened in Hart. I'm pretty sure it was in, and I was next in, and I got called up, and so I mean, because I wasn't in that, it could have been my size again that I was only first on standby, but I don't know. You'd have to speak to the manager at the time, but yeah, it
yeah,
definitely went against me for the under 15s. I know that was one of the reasons because I had a pushy manager down in Waterford that wanted to know, and he was demanding. He was actually he was a cop down there, and he was that kind of a character, and he'd fight for you. He was a great fella to have work with you, and he was demanding. He said, "Look, why, what's the?" And that was definitely part of the feedback. So I did catch a few guys up. Like I had a bit of a spurt just to get me back up in around people of the same age. Obviously,
mm.
was never going to be tall, and obviously still to this day I'm not. But yeah, it was something that kind of went against me in the early part. Yeah.
It's just at the timing as well. Like, you know, you can see it in sports. Like things kind of go in cycles. You'll see like where, you know, a team might have big physical team might be successful, and then their kind of their system is unlocked by a smaller, craftier team, and then that kind of takes over, and that's the trend. And then, you know, it kind of goes in cycles. You know, sometimes you see
Yeah,
that in sports.
yeah, it's true. You know, it's almost like Barcelona, like when you had
Yeah,
Iniesta and Xavi and Messi, you know, against like probably Bayern Munich or so the Germans or so,
mm.
you know, yeah, it's like you know, Barcelona, I suppose, is the best example, isn't it? You just need to keep possession and lads that would
Yeah, like
unlock teams. And
they had that master at one stage, you know, where they had, you know, they were a relatively small team, but like so skillful, like played a great system football. But then it took like a physical team, maybe Mourinho's Inter Milan that came along, stubborn physical team that just kind of
yeah,
broke down, and it changed their philosophy then for another while, you know, until it comes round again. It's funny.
battle of the wits. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Oh, it's good for the. I suppose it's good for the game. It's not just you know, it's not
yeah.
one style of play. It's there's a lot to figure out for a manager. I wouldn't envy managers.
No, but I think they're looking at players and more holistically now too. Like, as
Yeah,
regards
that can only be good for the player. Yeah, I mean, I know in around the time where I got released, the whole athleticism came into it, and just as clubs got, you had Wenger who had come in and changed the whole canteen at Arsenal and all this. The clubs are looking at these things and looking for that extra yard and what can we do to catch these teams, and things got more and more professional. So yeah, the whole athleticism, and I suppose Wenger was bringing in these big French guys and Elkas and Jan Ries that could run and 6'2", 3, 4. They were just built, and Overmars. If you wanted to be a winger, you needed 6 gears, and that's the way other clubs were looking at it then. The pace on the wings and the big target men, and the whole thing was shifting.
Ever changed, yeah. And then you had a brilliant experience in '97, the famous World Cup.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah, brilliant. Brian Kerr was over you that time.
That's right.
You had a good relationship with Brian, had you?
I did. Brian. Sure, look, as I was saying, I'm kind of an easy go, and just touching on what you were saying earlier, like my style was complete and utter honesty. That was I suppose, and if I look back and had any regrets, I kind of say my approach was always to do my job and to help out my teammates. I was always a team kind of a player, and I just would run myself into the ground, and that was my style. So I suppose with Brian, he appreciated that, and it didn't go unnoticed. And he, more often than not, he'd kind of he'd use me as a kind of for a certain kind of a role. He might have me. I'd go out kind of with kind of very specific kind of instructions. I could be. As we got to latter stages of that World Cup, I was man marking one of their best players. Morocco or someone we played.
How would you receive that, the man marking duties?
Well,
I suppose you're willing to make sacrifices, I suppose, right?
Absolutely. I was just delighted to be playing, to be chosen.
Yeah, of course.
It's such an important game, and the fact is, this guy was such a good player, and he was. I stuck to him like glue, and the fact, I suppose, it was so small and nippy, it'd be hard enough to shake off, and he found it hard. Did a decent enough job. Once or twice he might have got to better, but it was a decent enough job at the time. And but Brian was a great manager. He was easy going away from the pitch, but he was very diligent when it came to the specific training we were doing and the set pieces. And I think probably 75% of his job was knowing the opposition, because he knew them inside out, and he knew their players as well as the other manager did, and what their strengths and weaknesses was, and we'd have that drilled into us. And so very regimental that way, and had us very well prepared.
Yeah, it sounded like a brilliant experience. Well, it started off, I suppose, defeat to Ghana in the first game, and then you beat the USA. Is that right? And you drew with China. Was that right?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. We
and then beat Morocco. Then you beat Morocco in the quarterfinal, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think it was Morocco we played next then, and then
Argentina.
Yeah. I think was it did we say Spain after that? I think we would have gone into last 16 and then on to the quarters, and then so we would have beaten 2 teams when we came out of our group. So we beat, I think, was it Spain? Jeez, my memory's terrible. And we only celebrated the 20 years of it then a couple of years ago.
Yeah, brilliant.
But I have in my head Spain for some reason, but it may not have been. But definitely somewhere before Argentina again. It was once we got out of the group, we were thrilled, absolutely thrilled.
Momentum.
Yeah, and it was just great, such a great camaraderie with all the boys, and we were just in this together. And when you're in Malaysia, it's such a remote part of the world. You're kind of scrambling together for decent food, and you had all these kind of small little obstacles, and everyone was just nobody let it get to them. Everyone was so easy going over there and hard working and just enjoying the experience.
A lot of big players around you as well. Wasn't Duffer was on that team?
Yeah, but Duffer was there, but Duffer was the quietest lad out there, and he was maybe a year above his age, if not 2 years, and he would you wouldn't hear him from one end of the day to the next. He'd just come alive as soon as on the grass, you know, and
Gosh, yeah.
give him the ball and he's gone. And, you know, that was Duffer down to a T. And shortly after that, like, the whole thing opened up for him and off he went. And, you know,
Amazing to be in around those lads and
it
be
really
involved with
was,
them.
you know.
Yeah.
And looking back, like, I mean, I was a quite enough guy, but I had an inner confidence in myself. And, you know, like, when I was on the pitch, I kind of fancied myself a little bit, you know, and I knew I was a decent enough player. But when you come across the likes of Duffer and you're looking at him, you're going, oh, geez, well, he's the next step up, you know. And it's good it's good for you as a player to see that. And, you know, you can kind of look at these lads and say, you know what, well, he definitely was better than I was. And you know, then it makes it easier when you don't make it, that you know, you see these lads and go, well, okay, well, if that's what it takes, I didn't have that extra bit, you know what I mean?
Well, I think you're a bit harsh on yourself because, like, obviously your drive and your belief was the reason you were where you were. Like, a lot of lads will be swallowed up by it, you know. And you have to. I think you're showing there that you have to have belief in yourself, and regardless of who's around you, because if you're looking up to lads in the wrong way, you can be swallowed up. You know, you got to believe that
Oh,
you
for sure,
you were
for
on that
sure,
stage for a reason. Like, you know,
100%,
yeah.
100%. If I had a son, I'd give him one quality. If he's going over there, I'd say self-belief.
Mm.
Like, if he was an arrogant so and so that where you might say Marmite, half the town hates him, half the town loves him.
Mm.
It wouldn't bother me, because if you don't have the self-belief going over there, when you walk into the dressing room in a foreign country and you've got a load of lads, oh mate, you know,
Yeah,
loud English guy,
yeah.
young lads are, you know, and I don't want to tarnish everybody, so
No, no, I get you.
paint everyone say brush, but they're loud, they've come through the system, you know, from other teams, and they're used to the whole thing. And if you're a small little lad and quiet little fella, that's going to be, they pick up on that, and next thing you know, you're not getting the ball when it crosses. You
Mm.
know what I mean? When you're in training or on the pitch, and
You're
even
gobbled.
even
You're gobbled
when
up.
you go over on trial, to these clubs, it's damn hard to you know, impose yourself in training, and to get the ball and to have the guts to take a guy on and show the manager what you can do. And you say, look, I want a contract. I don't care that this fella wants me to pass the ball, or that he's going to give out if I don't pass it to him. You know, you have to really just
Yeah, you'll
have
have
the balls
domineering
to.
characters, I'm sure. You have fellas that just have that arrogant streak about
Well,
them.
you certainly do. You certainly do. You have big shots there who are being told they're big shots and that they're going to be fast tracked through the system. And you know, they're very kind of, well, they're quite intimidating, and they're big shots. You know, they're arrogant, and they're not nice people, to be honest.
Yeah, and so it's kind of the same. It's probably the same in the Irish setup, I'm sure. You know, you see country lads coming up and mixing it with city guys. Like, it's the same thing in a way, really,
Well,
isn't it?
it is very much so. And going back to when I was talking about when I was starting to make it into the Irish team under 15 and 16s, there was only three of us, would you believe, on that Dublin, or that team, that Irish team, that were outside of Dublin.
It's amazing.
There was me set, and I'm talking now about the under 16 European Championships that was played in Dublin. And we were playing our three home games in Talca Park, and we stayed across the road in the Skyline Hotel. And it was only myself, Colin Hawkins, and another guy, and I'm going to say his name now, and I'll probably say his brother's name, either Ronan Frawley or Connor Frawley. One of them played, he was from Athlone, and one of them played for Athlone, but it was his younger brother, that was with us. And it was only, yeah, and so myself and Colin stayed in the Irish team for the rest of the, I suppose, right up to under 21 level. So we knew each other inside and out. But yeah, little changed right the way through. There was only a few players that weren't from Dublin all the way through. So when you walk into a change room for trials in Ireland under 15 or 16, then you're going to really have to have your head on to make
Yeah.
sure when you get back in that car to go home that you've impressed, and that you've you know, you do your little bit when the ball comes to you. You know,
Yeah, it's hard pressure. Like, you know, it's just
it's
been,
not easy. It's not easy.
no,
It's
being, the mental part of it is so important. Just being having that mental strength and that belief in yourself is, you know, it's very hard. You can't coach it, you know, but I
yeah,
definitely agree with you. I think it would, the quicker you, what's the word I'm looking for? The quicker you adopt that from a young
adapt.
age, yeah,
Yeah,
adapt and believe in yourself from a young age, the easier it is then
yeah,
when you get on, because
Yeah, it's true. I think, like, if you're a good player growing up, you're always going to be told you're a good player. Like, right back from when I was playing underage Waterford, oh yeah, Alan Kirby, good player, good. And I knew walking around, you like, I had years and years of fellas saying, he's a good player, he's, good soccer player,
Yeah.
all
Yeah,
this
yeah.
stuff. And so you're going to have that level of belief in yourself.
Of course. That's
But
great
it
to
can
hear
be,
that. Like, it's great to hear that back.
yeah, but it's a hard one to get right, because, like, when you then go to the Irish team and you're going to a better standard, then if things don't go your way, and next thing you're taken off in games, or you get a contract over in England, you're not having a look in, because the whole stand, you went from being a big fish in a small pond to being a nobody, and you're not playing over there, and you're not adapting, and you know you you're somebody that's never had to do this before, and and all of a sudden, how do you cope? Well, nobody's ever told me I'm not good enough. So how
Yeah.
am I adapting to this? How do you prepare a young lad for that, going over, who's only 17 if he's gone straight from school like I was? So it's a hard one to coach into a lad before he
Yeah.
goes over.
You have to experience it, don't you?
You do, and if I was saying there, if I had a young lad to go up, I'd say, look, have strong belief, but look, chances are you're not going to make it. Like, if you just go purely on facts,
Yeah.
you don't want you need to have to sow that seed, and to say to the lad, look, I just want you to know that if you don't, you're not coming back a failure, and you know what I mean. Don't just go over and do your best. That's you know what I mean, because there's an awful pressure on lads going over there.
Yeah, you have to go over and stamp your authority. And look at him. I said, even the swagger of a fella sometimes can stand out. It felt like he could be doing very little, but you can just
Yeah,
some players have a presence on a pitch. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
I know we quoted Keane there earlier on, but like Roy Keane, obviously he had a lot to a big point to prove in his mind, and his physicality really. He put fear
Yeah.
into teams, and I suppose that's what stood out to managers or coaches and scouts looking at him, saying, "Look, this fella's serious."
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
like
he had certain qualities, and
yeah,
he was seen. He went to a good team that was, he went to a smaller team in Forest, I
mm,
suppose, at the time, and got in. He did it the right way. Got in there, and he was seen by the right manager at the right time, and scored some crucial goals. He was
yeah.
obviously an excellent player growing up.
But it's
But
just an example of even you could do. I'm sure you could do very little in a trial game, but you could have those 2 or 3 moments, I suppose, that are magical, and just the way you kind of carry yourself in a way, like
absolutely,
yeah, yeah,
absolutely, and it's all been seen by the right managers at the right time,
yeah,
and going
yeah,
to the right
exactly, of
club.
course,
As I said to you, there's 6 lads assigned with, or 3 lads assigned with Gillingham, and a few months later, the whole thing underage folded, and they were back at home. So they probably thought they were doing the right thing,
mm,
going to a smaller team and working their way in and getting into the first team easier, and all that, and so,
yeah.
it didn't work out for them.
And then you look at Ron Atkinson, like he would have seen you play and he would have seen you developing over there. And next thing you know, he's whipped. The whole lot's whipped with him, and all that,
Yeah,
yeah, and all
yeah.
that progress is just like without you realizing the time because you're still so young. But it's like it's wasted. It's
It is. It is.
yeah,
It is, and it's different change. The
it's
whole
the
thing
draw
is
of it.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It just quickly changes, and you're on slippery slope, I suppose, almost.
Cool. Before we move on to the town days, Alan, just want to go through your accolades here. Obviously, we discussed your World Cup bronze medal, '97. You have 4 FAI Cups, 2 with Longford Town, 1 with Sporting Fingal, and 1 with Sligo Rovers. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. That's it. Yeah, that's right.
Your League Cup with Longford Town, league runner-up on 3 occasions. Sure they were disappointing for you, but
Yeah,
but it just goes to show the competitive environment you were in, like consistently. It was
yeah. That's right.
top of your game. UEFA Cup appearances, played versus Manchester United in the first ever soccer match at the Aviva with the League of Ireland representative team. Look forward to talking about that now and ask you about that in a while. And then we give your special mention of representing Ireland in badminton under 14. I'm sure that career in badminton didn't last too long.
No. I
You hadn't time
suppose
for it.
I hadn't time for it. He's right. Yeah, no money in it. If I'm being honest, then. But yeah. Well, I think it was my mum, or was it my dad? I think it was my mum that used to play a bit of badminton, and it was fantastic. We really, really enjoyed it, and if I had my time again, I sometimes say to myself, would I play a sport where it's just one on one? Because I love the whole competitive side of it, and if you didn't win a match, it was your fault. You were beaten, not because the keeper let one in, or
Yeah.
the defender had an off night or something. I just loved the one-on-one kind of aspect to it, and I would play that at weekends, maybe a couple of times in the week, and I suppose, look, there wasn't too many playing, and I was quickly one of the better ones in the county, and then in Munster, and lo and behold, Dublin had the strongest players, and I under 14, I got a national title in doubles, and I was chosen to be on the Irish team. We went over to play in a quadrangular tournament, so Ireland, England, Scotland, and Wales over in Scotland when I was 14. And sure, look, England are so strong, they put out their under 13 team and they still win it. They're just, it was a level I was never going to get to, and sure, we got wiped, every game we played over there, but it was certainly experience.
Do you ever revisit it all now, or ever get away for a game? Or
I played a handful of times since, but sure, I'm useless now. It's all technique.
Of course, yeah. I couldn't
the court.
have that.
I used to clear the court with a shuttle, no problem, from baseline to baseline. Like, it's a hard thing. It's a hard enough thing to do.
Oh, absolutely.
It's all technique. It's like trying to hit a slitter as hard as you can. And you mightn't go far, but if you just get the technique right, these lads that are playing now are hurling, that they look like they're just hitting it easy, and they might drive it into the. It's all same with golfers. It's all technique, but you need to be playing all the time for that.
I know. Be a nice escape for you, maybe.
Yeah. Exactly.
Obviously, the Town, when you first signed for the Town, like, it was it was another chapter in an illustrious career in which you had, and I'm not sure if you keep track of your appearances. Am I right in saying you had 264 appearances with the Town in total?
I don't keep track. It came up at one stage where I was told that I had the most caps of any Longford ever player, and then I was told, no, before that, I think I was told, no, it's Stephen O'Brien. So I've no idea. Then Tony G said, no, I looked it up and it's you. And
yeah, I think
I've heard it's me, and then I've heard it's Stephen so many times. I don't know, but I don't know the exact number of caps.
It's phenomenal. Like, you were an ever-present figure in all those teams. And I suppose the first thing that stands out to me, like, were you, like, obviously you must have looked after the body really well.
Well, I was blessed, to be honest, because I never had any serious injuries, and I think the fact that I was small and kind of wiry, I was lucky in that sense. Those kind of bodies hold up, I suppose, a little bit better than someone that's taller or ganglier. I mean, I would have played with lads that were always injured, and I always found they were kind of bigger and almost kind of ganglier. I don't know what the word is, but I think just being that little bit smaller, more compact. And I had a bit of luck as well, because thinking back, I rode some absolutely horrendous challenges. So I think the fact that I was light to my feet and able to kind of skip around lads.
Did you bring them on? You did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I can imagine the trickery of it. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I was light enough on the feet, and particularly when I was younger, I was very dainty.
Yeah.
But as you get older, I would have moved from the wing into the middle of midfield. And I suppose you lose that yard, and you have to kind of adapt your game and become a bit more of a playmaker, I suppose.
Did you always prefer centre mid?
No, I always preferred the wing. I always loved taking it on and the up and the down, help the full back it up, whip in across. I got as much satisfaction from whipping in across for a goal than I did a scoring myself. That's what, and that comes back to probably
all the crucial assists you had.
Crucial, yeah, exactly. And it comes back to being a team player, I suppose. Again, you are, you aren't.
I love hearing that. I love hearing that. Like, that's feeling the satisfaction from, setting up a score as much as getting one yourself. It's.
Yeah, I always found it got as much recognition. Really, you didn't get headlines for it, but
your peers always recognise your teammates as well. Like,
Exactly. And once I was doing my job well, if I finished a match, played well, I was happy.
And what drew you to the Town? Now, I know you spoke before about you had previously played against them. You loved the atmosphere of Flank here at the time, as it was called.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I didn't have any notions of Longford Town before we played them in the FAI Cup semi-finals and beaten over two legs. But liked what Stephen Kenny was doing, the attacking football. We came up to play up in the, I think it was the first leg up in Longford, and I loved the atmosphere. The place was hopping, it was loud, it was noisy. I had a good game that night. It was a bit of a torn in Longford side, and obviously Stephen liked what he saw, decent enough. game in the return leg, and I got a call then. I think at the end of the season to sign for the town under Stephen. And obviously they had qualified for Europe, so that was a big lure. But it was a fact that they owned their own pitch. When I was down with Waterford, I had been there 2.5 seasons, so I came back from Aston Villa, and it was in the Christmas of '98, and they were in the Premier. We stayed up by the skin of our teeth. We were playing at the RC, which is obviously where they still play. There's a big running track around it, and I'd hate pitches with running tracks around it. I always love the pitches where the crowd are right next to the sideline, and you can hear them giving out, you can hear them praising, you can hear everything. It just always adds to the atmosphere, and I always play better. So the pitch didn't suit me, big wide pitch, and we were actually travelling up and down to Carlow for training, would you believe, right?
Oh, God.
Because when Mike Flanagan came in, like, they didn't have the talent in Waterford, and he had to get players in from this big smoke. And he felt it was important enough thing to do for the lads to come down from Dublin, for us to travel up and meet halfway, because he didn't want these lads coming down. It was difficult for him, and I understand it. And I was young enough not to be giving out about it. So I got on with it. So at least we were all getting together for a night of training during the week before we'd meet up for matches, and there was that bit more of a camaraderie coming to matches then, you know. But, you know, far from ideal, and particularly training in the back of a rugby pitch up there under bad floodlights. But anyway, I just said, you know what, yeah, I'm interested here, and I like the style, and he spoke very highly on me, and he said, look, what would it take, you know? And I said, well, what obviously, you know, well, what would I be paid, you know?
Of course, yeah.
Well, not so much what would I be paid. What happened was I was playing full time, and I said, look, Stephen, I'm getting paid 52 weeks of the year down here, which was a rare enough thing in Ireland. Now it's peanuts, but they were so we get up and we train in the morning at Waterford, and then they'd have us going around to schools and things like that to do a bit of coaching.
Okay, cool.
So they were getting their money's worth basically. And I said, look, that's what's giving us the few quid in the off season. So he said, oh, right, well, we'd only be paying 36 weeks of the year. And I said, well, what about a job?
Yeah.
Job, he said to me, so you'd actually move up? Oh, Jesus, yeah, I wouldn't be signing for Longford Town and travelling up. And he couldn't get over it. She'd move up. I said, yeah, geez, I've no intention now of travelling up from Waterford and getting out of the car after 4 hours and playing a match. Of course I'd move up, he said, and he was thrilled. He said, I'll ring you back. And Agent Duncan was the chairman. So I rang back within about half an hour, I'd say, and says, look, because what happened is, right, you know, the big flank care building that so that 100 acres of land, a guy called Michael Woodlock had bought, right? Now Michael Woodlock was Jim Hanley, the chairman's cousin or something like that, right?
Right, okay.
And through Jim, I think, phoned Michael and said, Michael, you I assume the conversation went something like this, Michael, that land that you've bought, what are you doing with that? There's a civil engineer that was working that land, and it was obviously boggy land, and they had to do a big job on raising the whole surface. And they came up with this job where I was going to be assistant to this civil engineer, literally sitting in the port cabin on the site Monday to Friday, but you know, tailored around the football. So on the 2 days a week where I get up and go to Dublin for training, I just turn around at 3:30, 4 o'clock and say, right, Brian, I'm off. He was the civil engineer. Yeah, no bother, off you go. And he wouldn't see me till the next morning at 8 o'clock. So I was getting a wage from that 52 weeks of the year, and then I was getting a few quid from the soccer club. So I was doing well for myself, you know.
Yeah, brilliant that everyone made it happen, and even yourself.
Everyone made it happen.
Willing to move, yeah.
And then Stephen said, look, I'm not dragging you up to Dublin for training. I'm going to come down to you, and that's the biggest thing I say about Stephen to this day. Unfortunately, you know, Stephen was gone pretty soon after I signed. Yeah. But you know, he just lived and breathed the game, and for a manager to travel down from Dublin to watch the under-21s train and down the rugby club at the side of the building there, for anyone that knows it, and to watch, you know, it was just, I just thought it was really good. And I suppose going back to Ron Atkinson, like Ron, he knew all the players in the under-21s, and he'd bring the likes of the Kenny and these lads into the training for the first team squad, you know.
Yeah, and sure, look, there's a reason he is where he is today. You know, when you hear stories like that about his commitment to players, and
Oh, absolutely, you know, absolutely.
you felt important under him. You know.
Oh yeah, he'd pick you up to the last. You know, I
Yeah.
remember him telling me, you know, the particularly good game or scored a couple of goals, I think against Cork, and Alan, that's it. You just don't see that in the league, and he just made you feel like you were.
Yeah.
Geez, I'm going to be back in England in no time, and you know, he was very encouraging. But equally, you know, he was a hard man to please. You know, try telling him you're injured, you know all about it. You know.
Oh God, I know. Yeah, God, that's a familiar one, all right.
Yeah,
And like you played your first competitive game against how am I pronouncing it right?
Litex Lovich,
Yeah,
I'd actually wrong
Bulgaria,
too,
wasn't
but
it?
that's how I was pronounced it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
they,
So like
they
obviously
came,
that was an attraction for you as well. Obviously, you know, to be playing in Europe.
yeah, big time, you know. And Alan Reynolds was signed at the same time. Stephen was after him after he signed me, and he says, "Look, what am I going to do?" I told him, "Look, do you want to play for Waterford your whole career?" And nothing wrong with that. I
Mm.
said, "But he'd already been there 10 years, and he was mid-20s, I think, at this stage. Or do you want to try something new? It's just up to you." I said, "But I want to play in the UEFA Cup." And sure enough, he signed for the town. So two was made our debut, and we it was magic. And you know, you had to talk about the club, and you talk about how everyone came together to build a stadium out there, and you know, where if people weren't painting, they were fixing seats in, and it was just, you know, it added to it at the on the night itself, and have 3,000-4,000 whatever it was at the time, if not more. It was just magic.
Yeah.
And we put in a good show.
Phenomenal few years, and if I'm being honest, I obviously would have kept an eye on it, but wouldn't have been one of the avid Longford Town followers. My cousin would have been, and a lot of my friends. I would have seen what it meant to them, but it was such a special period. I remember even watching on the telly and all that, and I suppose it's, you know, as the years go on, it was probably taken for granted at the time, but it was really, really unique.
Yeah, and you know, I suppose as a player, you take it a little bit. You're enjoying. You're thinking, "Oh, this is great." And, you
Mm.
know, when I look back now, I think about the European nights. But as a player, you take it just a small bit for granted. That look, there'll be more. Luckily enough for me, there was.
Yeah.
You know, but as a sense of it's almost telling a child that they're in the best days of their lives. You know, enjoy your childhood or whatever. Growing up, you've no responsibilities and blah blah blah. It's kind of lost on them a little bit. Whereas, you know, you do appreciate it, but you're saying, yeah, there'll be other nights like this, and you know, it's only when they stop coming that you really realise how big they are, you know.
Yeah, but like you were really thrown into it. Like on your debut, you scored 2 goals against Cork. Am I right in saying that in your first league game?
Yeah, that could
You
be the game
scored.
actually I was talking about there.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember
yeah.
scoring two against, and it went really well.
So
Yeah. So,
and then you had a massive fixture against Finn Harps there that time in the Premier Division. They were cutting down from 12 to 10 teams. Didn't you have to play off a game against Finn Harps?
oh
And
yeah, it was a massive game
yeah,
up in
do you know it was
Hollywood
that
Bay.
was decided on penalties, wasn't it?
It was, geez, it was. Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
when you think about it, like, you know, it was like you were straight in, like this roller coaster was taking off already. Like, you know, you were
Yeah, absolutely.
competing at a high level. You were in finals, the League of Ireland Cup finals. You just narrowly lost to St. Pat's that time, and
Yeah,
then you end up beating them then in the FAI Cup final.
yeah.
Mm.
So like, you know, it was. Look back, I'm thrilled I made the move, and I stayed for five plus 01 to 06. I don't know if that's 5 or 6 seasons,
Yeah, oh one
because
to
I
06,
think
yeah.
the season changed, I think, during that time from summer to soccer. So I don't know whether I got that extra season in. So it was definitely 5 or 6 seasons anyway, before I moved on. But yeah, I mean, look, three cup finals, and European appearances. Like, you'd have to say that was a successful time that I really enjoyed. You know, so
Yeah, it's like you talk about timing and sport, and you couldn't have timed any better. And sure,
yeah,
there was a brilliant bond with supporters too. I'm sure.
absolutely. We have a get together every so often, and the banter, like, you know, when we got together for years and years later, got together for unfortunately for Sean Prunty's retirement.
Yeah,
But like, just sitting in that dressing room with the likes of Alan Murphy, Vinnie Pert, and Graham Gartland, and all these big characters, and you really think, Jesus, no wonder we did so well. They were just big lads that really shone on big occasions, that 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 like I talk about that arrogance. These lads weren't arrogant, but come a big night when you had a packed house and it's the big cup game. These lads weren't found wanting. They wanted the ball. They made things happen, and you know what I mean. They stood up to the test, and it's no coincidence that we did so well.
Yeah, Alan Kirby has Sean on for chat as well. Like, and obviously he holds you in high regard. You're good friends away from it all too, and yeah, it was just
Yeah,
a golden crop. Like, it really was. And your old club fell victim to you as well too, Waterford. And I know you had mixed feelings about that, but it's part of sport as well, isn't it? That was a
absolutely.
crazy finish to that game.
Crazy finishes, right? And it was bittersweet in that sense, in that, like, obviously I was in the cup, so great for me, but I was knocking. I mentioned Alan Reynolds, name there. He was the player manager of Waterford at the time, and
Yeah,
obviously they hadn't won the cup, Waterford, since the 80s, I think it was, and I know how much it meant for them. So I wasn't, obviously I didn't go running off celebrating. I just wanted to pay that bit of respect, and but I think I've said it since, in that. I was almost, I took it too far, because I remember like I didn't celebrate that. That was my expression of my respect for Waterford.
of course,
But
yeah.
after the final whistle, I carried I carried on, right, not smiling. So, like, I mean, at that stage I should have been running, doing laps of the pitch, but hey, we won the FAI Cup. But I didn't know what to do, and I was going, are they Longford Town fans up there with you, Walter? I don't want to see me smiling like I'm enjoying this. I shouldn't be smiling. I really didn't know what to do, and it was Alan Matthews pulled me a week or two afterwards, or whatever. Could have been the start of the next season. I don't know when it was, but he says to me, I'm only after getting a chance to look at all the pictures and stuff afterwards of us celebrating on the pitch, holding the trophy, and everyone, way, you'd imagine, mouth wide open, and I'm there, lips wide shut, and just going, you can imagine how it looks yourself, and I was going, oh yeah, look, I had to apologise, sorry about that, yeah, I just didn't know, kind of, but obviously inside I was bursting with
Of
joy,
course,
so
yeah.
I was just afraid to kind of show it, really, and obviously
Yeah.
we came back, and we came back to the town, and we did all nice things up, and did the
Yeah,
next few
I'm
days
sure.
or
I'm sure
whatever,
you made
so.
up for it. You made up for it afterwards. And
Ah, sure, yeah.
was there some rumor of a Waterford player clearing a stray ball at the time you scored, or is that true? Or?
Oh, yes, right. So what happened was, there was the ball came out. So the ball went out for a throw, and I think a ball by threw on another ball. So we played on. But as we took the throw with the replacement ball, the other ball got thrown down, I think, from the crowd, and made its way onto the pitch. So as the ball was thrown in, it made its way to Eric Levine, the original ball. Well, say the original ball, the replacement ball. And I ran to get a layoff from Eric and buried the
Yeah,
layoff. But Alan
yeah,
Reynolds, who was marking me, let me run, because I assume, spotted the ball that was thrown back in from the crowd. He was waiting for the whistle to blow, because there was two balls in the pitch and the whistle never blew. So the referee didn't see the second ball, and he let the thing go ahead, and that's what happened. So you can imagine what
God.
they're going through, like,
Oh, I quit. I know. Look at that sport. Crazy things
You
happen.
talk about momentum then, and that's, we had the momentum when we got the second goal, and that's it.
Yeah, because like even you look at the clips, like it seemed like a very surreal feeling, because it all happened so quick. You know what I mean? Like the equaliser, and then to get the winner. I suppose until the final whistle blew, I don't think he realised, what he
Yeah,
had achieved.
the victory from the Jaws' defeat, and that's what made it all the more unbelievable and special, and my God, what have we just done? And I suppose made it, on the opposite side, made it all the more disbelievable for Waterford, as you said. So yeah, it just made it all the more fairy tale like. So yeah, quickly over, in terms then of you're off the pitch, and then you're in the dressing room, and
I know.
you're celebrating in there, and you're back on the bus, and you're on the way back to Longford, and it's just, the whole thing was amazing.
Yeah, it's a fabulous time, and look at. I know you moved on, and you had a great career with Pats and Sporting Fingal as well. After you had loads of high moments, you continued to excel after that, and then it was very fitting to come back with the town. I think you played your last game against Waterford as well, Alan. Is that correct?
Yeah, quite ironically, I did. Yeah, I
You
played.
must have had that worked out in the contract, did you?
Yeah, that's right. I did. Yeah. It's small print, but yeah, it was the
I
way
don't
it
know how I don't
fell.
know how that result went. How did that last result go actually in that
We
last
lost
game?
it. We lost it. Yeah, we We
You had enough damage done to them at that stage now.
yeah, well, they were definitely a stronger team at the time.
Yeah.
I think
It's funny how it works out, isn't it?
it is. It is. You know, it is. I mean, it was very. That was very surreal. Speaking of surreal, like I mean, I was after putting 14 or 15 season into League of Ireland, and I was standing on the pitch, and actually was a sub that day for Longford, and I remember saying to Jesus, I'm a sub here on the last game I'm going to play now in League of Ireland, and here out. I remember running out to warm up, and usually you come in to warm up to get the team talk or whatever, and you come out with the. I don't think I did. I think I was there warming up for a solid hour, and I just stayed out and kicking the ball and just trying to soak it in and wondering how I was going to feel after this. And to be honest, I thought I was going to take a lot worse than I did, but I think the whole landscape had kind of changed for me, and that after 14 or 15 years and you know, seeing everything I had to offer, travelling up and down Ireland, sacrificed so much, and you know, to be a sub and just, I think I was ready to pack it in, and you're sharing the dressing room with lads you don't have too much in common with, like they're 18, 19, early 20s. You're just, you know, we kick less.
It's a defining stage, isn't it? It's a defining moment.
Yeah, you know, you just have to be able to, and I think I might have said it in an interview since, like, it comes to everybody, and really you have to be able to kind of piss on the game before it pisses on you in that sense. Like that you can go, do you know what, like, let's walk away here, let's be happy with me a lot. I have my plan B, I have my job, I have or this or that, I have a family, let's go, let's get out of here. Like if I was a lad there that had nothing, that soccer was my life, I would have found it a lot harder to walk away. I would have been a lot more upset, we'll say.
Well, you see, you keep chasing then, and you just end up bitter and sour, like, you know, and it's not a good way to leave it either. Yeah, and you weren't always one to accept being a substitute, or if you weren't playing,
Yeah, you know, I was an easy go type of a fella, but then I don't know, when it came to like not being picked and things like that, I'd be like, what the, you know, and I'd be just, because I was so honest and I gave everything, I just really took it as a slap in the face. And Alan, like I say, if it was Alan Matthews, he'd pull anyone that wasn't playing. He'd always give them the respect to say, look, I'm changing things up tonight. I want to try this and try that. Or look, I think you look, well, I was going to say, it was nice to say, he used to say, look, I think you look a bit tired, but I think that was his excuse more than anything. You know, the media, everyone looked a bit tired when they were being dropped. Look, I thought you looked
wasn't it better to be communicated in some way rather?
Absolutely.
Nothing worse than whipped and unsaid.
Everyone would be in the dressing room, and he'd come in, and the door would open. He'd go, say if it was me that was being dropped, he'd say, Curbs, can I have a word? And everyone would go, oh, Curbs dropped. Whoever he called out was dropped. So you come back in then with a head in you, and you wouldn't be talking to anybody. You'd be looking at your gear. Your head would be in the bag, and you'd be throwing things into your bag. You'd be trying to make it not like a spoiled kid, like slamming the door, like, or something. You know, that was the way I was. I was like a spoiled baby whenever I didn't get picked. You know, and
Mick McCarthy caught you in one of those moods that time too. I know you mentioned him earlier, didn't he? After the
Well, that's it. Yeah, I was. Well, actually, I was a bit annoyed that I was only a sub. I was after traveling over Czech Republic, and I only got 20 minutes or 25 minutes. But when I was kind of, when he was beside me, I was secretly thinking, well, actually, I did pretty well when I came on. I got a lot of the ball and I made things happen. And I was thinking, I wonder if Mick thought that was a decent cameo. And when he said it to me, then I was delighted, and I didn't actually care that we lost then at that stage. I think we lost 3-1 or something, and at least I was able to go back and say I took my opportunity, what little opportunity was given to me, you know. But what used to drive me mad was when you weren't playing and you get brought on for 2 minutes or something like that, when you're like 3 or 4 goals down, or you know, it used to drive me bananas. Unless I was on the clearance fee, you know, then you know. Like that.
But sure, I know the feeling. I brought on for the final whistle. Jesus.
Yeah. Listen, but anyway,
part and parcel of it. Alan, your greatest sporting achievement?
But I'd have to say the World Cup medal, you know, just because it's so special. You know, I mean, there's only 18 or 19 of them in the country, and
so take a special place in your household, I'm sure.
Well, if I could find it now, there would be, you know.
I was hoping you wouldn't say that. God, it's amazing the amount of, you know, like we go looking for these medals, you know, and you'd imagine we should be putting them somewhere where we
Yeah,
know.
yeah. In around the time we were celebrating 20 years, but a couple of years ago, I rooted it out, so I do know it's somewhere. It's just I'd be afraid to put it up, to be honest, because
I
somebody ever
know,
go to
yeah,
your house, there it is in glory. They're going to take it. If it's in a shoebox and
yeah,
wherever
of
in the
course, yeah,
loft, they're less likely to find it.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, brilliant, brilliant. How would you like to be remembered, Alan?
Well, I suppose as a good player first and foremost.
It's an
Uh,
understatement.
and a kind of I suppose a team player, a skillful player, somebody that was a successful player,
Mm.
and a kind of an honest kind of a team player, I suppose. Yeah, that's it. Probably a lot in that, but
No, perfect, Alan, brilliant, brilliant.
yeah,
I think we reached your on the spots now. Um, sorry, it shouldn't be who said. What was your favorite match day boot? Sorry,
Umbro Speciali by a long shot. Loved them, absolutely loved
lovely.
them.
White with the white
Oh,
tongue.
with the white tongue. Had to be the white fold over tongue. Or if it was a black fold over tongue, didn't matter. But yeah, the white tongue was the. I got a. I got sponsored by Umbro somewhere along the line. There was a small little unit in behind the red cow on the motorway, the M50 motorway there. And the
Really?
man rang me actually one day and said, "Look, we want to give you a bit of gear." So happy days, and I went up and I got a few pairs of specialities. But other than that, they were hard to get. But
Yeah, they were
so
like the real, the
comfortable.
special division were very rare boot, like very rare, like
Yeah,
classic.
just fitted me like a glove. And I remember from the day I put them on, striking the ball, I was just striking it so much better, curling it. Just loved them, loved them.
Yeah, brilliant. It's funny in all the pictures I was looking up there, I seen lots of Umbro and a few Adidas, but I don't think I have a picture of you in the Specials.
Well,
I have to go search them again.
I think I have them on in that one. I think that specials I have on in
These
that
here,
one
oh, maybe the black tongue, is it?
with black tongue, or else I cut the tongue off altogether. Because or do you know what would do actually is I tie the lace over the tongue, so that's why you don't see them on
Yeah,
that. But I think
it
that's the
wouldn't have
Umbro one on
sitting
the
right.
side.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, I think it is. I
Oh,
went through an Adidas phase where I got a pair of Adidas. I think I just tried them on shop one day. I was like, oh, actually, they're nice, and I
yeah,
absolutely loved them. But they were an old one. You know the way Adidas were coming out with
yeah.
these new ones every few weeks, and this pair was discontinued, and I couldn't get a pair of them again. But I loved them, absolutely loved them.
Brilliant, brilliant. Yeah, class boot. The best town player you played with?
Loved playing with Eric in the picture there. Really, really enjoyed playing with Eric. But we
Did you find
gelled.
he always gave you great options?
Ah,
Like his
absolutely.
movement,
What a good player. What a good player. Like I mean, Eric was just always there. You get the ball, you look up, and there was Eric trying to get it off you. He just wanted the ball the whole time, and
yeah. Mm.
he was there looking for it. And you're like, oh, lovely, there he is. Just played up to his feet there, and he never stopped running. Like he'd you look up, and he's like, yeah, he's pointing in there, in behind, or no matter. When I think of Eric, I just think of him with this big sweaty head on him, just trying to run and gasping for breath. That was my memory of Eric, and of course, he set me up for countless goals. He was, I think, he was one of the rare strikers that would take as much pleasure setting you up for a goal as he would scoring it, and I think that's one of his faults that he wasn't greedy enough. Um,
Yeah, I did for the winner against Waterford. Did he? Was it him that played the ball? I think he had an opportunity to finish himself. I think he actually played the extra pass. If it was against Waterford, now maybe I have it wrong. Maybe it
yeah,
could have been
you're
the referee
right.
got back.
Yeah, and you know what? I'd have to look it back up myself, but he's still to this day getting asked why he didn't shoot that time. Like it was
Yeah,
a
because it
certain
was.
goal, but
You probably gave him the true ball. I think was it?
I can't actually remember. Yeah, we were
Mm,
definitely
but
linking up a lot anyway.
but yeah, you would have put your house on him that he'd attempt to finish it himself. He played the extra pass just to be sure. Took the keeper out, and I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
yeah,
I'm not
but
sure who finished it in the end.
he scored some remarkable goals as well. You know, he
Yeah,
tried the audacious from time to time, but only rarely enough. And like you talking about that Ballybuffet goal there earlier on,
yeah.
um, he got some goal up there, like, and that saved our bacon that day.
Mm.
So he's very, and rightly so, very highly thought of in the town.
His movement, fair play.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and just one more thing I want to ask you now before we finish up. It just like when you finished up with the game, you kind of just seemed to leave it. Like you were obviously moved on to the next chapter in your life, of course. But Was the connection kind of severed, or was there a reason for that, or like you talked before that you're not as involved in the game as you would have been when you were playing even.
So what happened there was I still keep myself fit, and fitness or
Yeah,
anything like that wasn't the issue. So I suppose talking there about a plan B, I went back to college. So I was literally that job that I got in Longford Town. I did that for 5 years, but I was always conscious that that was going to come to an end, and I went back
yeah,
to
of course.
college. So I got in as a mature student into DCU, and I did an honours business degree, and I had that. When I came out of that, I started my chartered tax advisor exams, thinking I'd have them in a year and a half. Sure, that took me as long as the degree did, but anyway, that's a by the by.
Mm,
And I those exams are in three parts, and they're serious exams. And I completed part one while I was playing for Longford when I had my final hurrah. And I was told by the crowd that I was working with in Dublin, so I was getting a train up and back from Dublin. So I was having very long days and out. So a typical day would be get up at 5 or 6 and work my day, and then get out of the office, back on the train, get off at Selbridge, and train. That's where we used to train, and then go back with one of the lads and get a lift back to Longford and get back in the car back home at 8 or 9 o'clock. And you're doing that 2 3 times a week. And also my
yeah,
firstborn was born, and she had special needs, and I just had a lot on. And I was told
of
that the
course.
part two exams were a big step up, and that I wouldn't pass them basically if I was still had the soccer. And
Mm,
like I was saying earlier, I weighed everything up and said, look, do I really need this another year traveling around? And the arse had fallen out of it too. I mean, I like
yeah.
Longford were paying me what they could afford, and you can imagine yourself how little that
Mm,
kind of was. And yeah, so I took a decision, and to this day, I'm still traveling up and down. Pre-COVID, up and down on the train to Dublin, where I'm still getting up at 5 or half 5 and coming home at 8 and 9 o'clock. So
God, it's no
um,
joke.
I don't have the time to do anything or to give a bit back
Yeah,
to football. I've often thought about being a coach, and I would, if I had a local job in the morning, I dare say I would be a manager or a coach. To
it's
give it
just
a
not an
go,
option.
but I just couldn't. I'm the type of person who, if I can't give something everything, I won't do it.
Mm,
And that's it. And that's why I haven't been involved in the game. I keep myself fit. I go to the gym. I go for a run, and I like a little bit of cycling. I do a few duathlon events or gale force events every so often,
good
just to
man.
focus my training on something, and I'm happy out. And I kind of like not having the commitment to be training a team on a Tuesday and a Thursday and a Saturday and a Sunday. But you know what I mean? I like the freedom of
Yeah,
getting
it's true. Because
cycling.
when you're in it, when you do get back into it, it's very time consuming.
It is, and
Mm,
actually when I finished up playing, and I moved into Ballinlee and all that sort of stuff,
mm.
the local GA club, Sean Connolly's, came down knocking on the door and asking. And believe it or not, actually ended up signing a contract, and then I had to, and rightly so. Like Trina had been X number of years waiting for me to get her weekends back with me, and
I
I had
know,
to
of
just
course.
say,
Yeah,
look, to be
yeah.
honest, I can't do this. I just want to concentrate on family life now for a little while. And
And I'm sure you realize that now more than ever, because it's very easy to fall into the trap of continuing on. And if you would have started into the GA there, like you were going to be gone, and you kind of forget about what's important too. And
yeah,
you know,
and I'm conscious. I was conscious. GAA is very, it's probably more professional, even though it's a local club here. It's probably as or more professional than
well,
Longford
there'll
in
be no let
terms of
help with training anyway. That's
the
for sure.
commitment side. Exactly,
Mm,
So
yeah,
I just and I was kind of conscious then as well that, like, I'd be getting targeted almost for being small enough type of ex-soccer player. I said, look, do I need to get broken up now in some GA match now in some remote part? I said, you know what,
yeah.
no,
Like
thanks.
you don't want to be cracked. You want to be able to get out and do your bit of exercise. And as you said, you had a couple of events you were training towards, so it's nice to be able
Yeah,
to do
and
that.
you have to sit back and say, look, am I happy? Yeah, I am.
Yeah. Well, look, and hopefully, like it's a very hectic schedule you have at the minute. But hopefully down the line there's an opportunity for you to go into coaching and get involved some way again. Because it'd be fantastic and amazing for the young players to have someone like yourself getting involved again and sharing your expertise and experience.
Yeah, I would enjoy it, and I would love to, and I hope that it does happen down the line.
Yeah.
But actually, this whole COVID thing, I've been working at home since Paddy's weekend, and I'm hoping that they're going to it's been a success. The whole firm,
Yeah.
the accountancy practice that I work with, it's been a success. So I'm hoping they'll rethink their policy, and at least if I can get 1 or 2 extra days, I won't know myself. So I could maybe commit to something, but look, the writing is hopefully on the wall for something down the line.
I think it's highly likely. I think a lot of companies are going to be reviewing the way to do things, and a lot of people working from home seems to be successful, and it's working.
It is, but with the likes of this Zoom and Teams, you quickly realise you don't actually need to be sitting in front of somebody unless you need to be physically going through files or what have you.
Yeah.
We went paperless in our office, so there isn't really any files, and so it's unless a client wants a face-to-face meeting, I'm hoping that we really don't need to be in the office.
Yeah, true. Well, Alan, look, thank you very much. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on. I was honoured to be in conversation with you. A legend of the game and a legend of the town. And I suppose I speak on behalf of all supporters. Incredibly proud of you and thankful to you for all you contributed to the game here in Longford. And it was just a great story, great insight. And I wish you well for the future. And I'd love to see you getting back involved with the game that you love.
Thanks very much, Sean. I know, I really enjoyed it. I have to say, I really enjoyed it. I could have kept the talking there. No, great.
Oh,
Great,
look, there's so much. I was researching your careers with Fingal there as well, and there's so much you could continue to chat about. As after the town, you had so many great years there with different clubs and an amazing career. And it's understandable after being involved for so long as well. When you do eventually finish up with the game, you can quite easily go the opposite way, and just getting away from it and a fresh start and just doing different things in life, and because you invested so heavily, people don't realize we only covered it there, quite, not comprehensively, but we covered as best we could. But there's so much involved in all those experiences, mentally, physically, year in, year out, and you missed very little football. So to be still intact, if that makes sense, and to have no real injuries.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. I often look back and think I was very, very lucky with injuries, as I said, and the PFAI did a thing where they honoured lads that had over 400 appearances, and there was a good number of us or whatever, but it really hammered home that look, I've been around and I've won things, and I was injury free, and I'm happy with the way it went.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. No, I loved your attitude and your commitment above all. I love that about players. Just work rate, first of all. It's a trait that's not that it's dying as such, but it's rare enough nowadays because, as I said, players are so diverse. It's always refreshing to see someone who's just that is, as well as being skillful and pacey, is a grafter, and works hard.
Yeah, exactly, and I think I think that was a feature of the Longford Town team. When you think the likes of Prunts and that, who were honest as the day is long, and we drove each other on and training, as you say, we're still good mates, and the likes of Sean and even Sean Dillon as well. I mean, these are the best players I played with for the town, and they were just, their attitude away from the pitch was as good as it was on the pitch. And
do you get out for runs with Sean at all now?
Well, I don't see as much as Sean as I'd like, to be honest. He's up, and he's three young kids there now, and
busy, yeah.
Very busy. He's doing a nutrition course at the moment, and he's a lot on his plate, and he does a lot of running actually at the moment. And he spends a good bit of his time up in the Wicklow and Dublin Mountains, and he loves it. And it's just run through the family. His dad, sure.
I was just trying to tell him to stay out of the mountains.
To stay out of the mountains, exactly. And his sister, it goes through the family, So
I know, for sure.
you know. But yeah,
Alan,
look,
thanks very much. You're
you're
a
welcome,
gentleman.
Sean, and thanks very much for the kind words. Really appreciate it.
No, not at all. No, I really appreciate you coming on. I wish you all the best, and hello to all the family, Alan.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sean.
Take
You too.
care. No
Bye-bye.
worries. All the best. Get up.
Bye.